Week 3 is in the books. We're starting to see some patterns emerge. We're going to do a Week 3 recap and the waiver wire. Let's get it. How did I do this week? Well, let's check the receipts in the scoreboard. My church league came out with a 157 to 126 win. Big games from Josh Allen, James Cook, and Jamar Chase. That Monday night matchup was real nice. 3-0 in that league. In my DFW Liga, we got my friend Casey and I playing, and there's always players you can beat and players you can't beat, and it's just the way it is, man. So there's a lady in our league, Sarah, can't beat her. So it all comes around. Geno, bad game, especially compared to Lamar. And once Saquon went off, I thought I was in trouble. I had to go ahead and delete the app. I'm sure y'all have been there before where you're like, I'm just going to delete the app. I'm going to live my life. I'm not going to worry about this Sunday, not my week. Well, fortunately for me, Derrick Henry went off. Deontay Johnson went off, 26 points. And Rashee Rice kept being just the baller that he is. Legal trouble and all. 2-1 in that league. And then in the third league, this is the Gordon Keith League. This is against Ted Emmerich. Came out with a nice 122 to 105 win. And 3-0 there. So 3-0, 3-0, 2-1. I'm 8-1 on the year. And we're going pretty strong. Week 4 is coming up. We're starting to see patterns emerge. This is the time of year where you're looking to make trades because you're starting to see, okay, this guy seems to be really undervalued. This person's taking over this backfield. This person's trash. We're going onward and getting more data. And now we're seeing these patterns emerge. So start making your moves.
Get your popcorn ready.
3 big games that I want to recap. The first one, Dallas and Baltimore. This is the 2 front runner teams. These teams are great when they're ahead. They're horrible when they're behind. If you're a fan of theirs, you know they kind of choke away leads. As a Cowboy fan, this is actually why I started doing fantasy football, because the Cowboys just disappoint me.
You are one pathetic loser. No offense. That's
all they've really done since I was young. They won Super Bowls when I was young. It was great, and it all went downhill from there. Cowboys disappoint again, starting real slow. The Ravens dominate early, but then fall apart a little bit. Neither one of them are really master classes in clutch. A stoppable force meets a movable object, but Henry and the Ravens and Lamar dominate. So Henry, 25 rushes, 151 yards, 2 touchdowns. He adds in a catch for 30.4 fantasy points. Huge week if you started him. I'm a little worried. Worry about him is it's all about game script. If they are in front, you're looking at a great game like the one this Sunday. But if they are behind, you are looking at a game like when they played against the Chiefs, where they just kind of get, game scripted out of the game. Lamar, another huge game. He ended up 12 of 15 for 80% completion percentage, so that's good. 182 and a touchdown, But the big thing about Lamar, same thing you're loving, 14 rushes, 87 yards, and a touchdown, 25.98 fantasy points. Huge game, great day at the office. Mark Andrews, a 0, might be time to panic on him. For the Cowboys, Dak had a big fantasy game, 379 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, 29.86 fantasy points. You'd say he played a bad NFL game. Don't know, don't care. We're only talking fantasy football. CeeDee Lamb's disappointed again. He was my top pick in the Dallas Liga. 4 for 8, 67, 8.7 points. It's just not clicking yet.
Dude, is this bad? Is this bad?
But give it time. And, CMC's injury seems to be lingering, so I don't feel horrible that I took him. No running game to speak of. Kevontae Turpin had a nice game. Jake Ferguson killed it at tight end. 6 catches, 95 yards on 11 targets. Game number 2 of the big 3. Raiders, Panthers. Chuba Hubbard truthers. Right here. It's the guy who was the Chuba Hubbard guy in the preseason. This is my victory lap. Lots of hate on Reddit when I said I'm all in on Chuba Hubbard. Huge game from our guy. 21 carries, 114 yards, 5 catches, 55 yards, and a touchdown, 27.9 fantasy points. I said in the preseason, I viewed him as a run at RB2. until Brooks got back, whenever that would be. And right now, after three weeks, he is running back 19, which includes a dud in week 1. So feeling pretty good about that call. Deontay Johnson, I told you to trade for him. I also told you to trade for Hubbard last week. If you did, congratulations, you got your stud. 8 catches, 122 yards on 14 targets, add a touchdown in, 26.2 fantasy points, the marathon. What a game. I said to trade for him. Hopefully you did. If you didn't, too late. Andy Dalton kind of showing us that, man, maybe Bryce Young wasn't the guy. Even Thielen got 13 points. For the Raiders, Jacoby Myers and Tucker balled out. Disappointing 8 points from Devontae Adams. Zamir White might just be trash.
I'm trash. I'm trash. I'm trash.
It might be time to panic on him. I'm going to do a little segment later on called Panic Switch Players. And Brock Bowers continues to impress. He had 7.1 points on 4 targets, but still tight end 2 for a guy that you drafted is tight end 13, 14. Man, there's nothing wrong. I mean, 7.1, it's not a dud. I mean, McBride got 5.5. There's a lot of people who had worse games. I mean, Kelsey has been just bad, which brings us to our third game, which is Atlanta, Kansas City of our big 3. Pat Mahomes, the reverse deck. Great real-life quarterback. Not a great fantasy quarterback. I mean, he had that one huge year, but since then, it's just been meh. Once he was drafted as quarterback 1, and only 16.38 fantasy points. The real winner on the Chiefs is Rashee Rice, because he is Travis Kelce. What do I mean by that? He's occupying the same space, and he is getting those short and intermediate targets. Look at these stats. 12 catches, 110 yards, 1 touchdown on 14 targets, 29 points. He's the one who's getting the short to intermediate routes. Kelce is getting taken away by defenses. Kelce has only gotten 7 points last week on 5 targets, 4 for 30. Like, it's just not happening. Not in the place you draft him. 7 points is fine. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But it's not what you drafted at that value. It's not what you drafted at that cost. As far as the running backs are concerned, Steele, 8.4 points. Pirine, 7 points, both below projection. Steele had the bulk of the carries. Pirine had a little more passing game work. Kind of what I thought would happen, what a lot of people thought would happen. That wasn't a huge bold call. Steele, if you want to pick him up, you're going to be dependent on a touchdown. Pirine, a little more passing game, and we'll see how they work Kareem Hunt in. I'm just not a huge fan of this backfield from a fantasy perspective. For Atlanta, I hope you didn't start Kirk Cousins. There was no reason to. Unless you're like in a 16-man league, 20-man league. I mean, did everyone draft 3 quarterbacks? Why would you do that? He doesn't run. He doesn't move. He played a good NFL game, but fantasy-wise, 11 points. Nothing there. Bijan disappointed a little bit because Casey held him to 1.9 yards per carry, 16 for 31. And he didn't find the end zone. He did find the end zone. Kind of salvaging his day, 13.2 points. Drake London kind of arrives there. 6 for 67 and a touchdown. 18.7 points. And Darnell Mooney, 8 for 66 or 14.6. He's someone you want to look at waivers.
A few moments later.
All right, let's move on to some shots called, and then we'll recap the rest of the week. Our shots of espresso. So shots called. So last week I said there's several players to trade for, and I got 3 of them right in big ways. I said if the Jamar Chase manager was 0-2, which there was a high probability given that he's been horrible and he was probably the first round draft pick, that perhaps he's panicking and needs a win. It's trade for him. 12 points first week, 7 last week. Too late now if you didn't do it. 6 for 118, 29.8 fantasy points. Hopefully you made that deal, because if you did, you crushed it. That was shot call number 1. The other 2 people I told you to trade for were Deontay Johnson and Chuba Hubbard. Deontay Johnson, as I already said, 26.2 fantasy points. Hopefully you traded for him. He wasn't going to cost much at the time, and his projection now is up to 14 points. Chuba Hubbard was the other one. Now he's an RB2, like I said in the preseason he would be, and he came in 21 carries, 114 yards, 5 catches, 55 yards. Dave Canales loves the workhorse. He's the workhorse. 27.9 fantasy points. So hopefully you listened to that and got yourself a stud waiver wire before we do the rest of week 3 results. Unfortunately, we're getting to the point in the season where there's not as many values anymore. Go over some waiver wire targets. Who am I looking to pick up? If you're in an 8-man league, I'm thinking Juwan Jennings, obviously. Who'd have thunk, right? Ayuk comes in with a perfect smash spot, but only puts up another dud. Who benefits? The man who woulda, coulda, shoulda won Super Bowl MVP, Juwan Jennings. A stunning line of 11 catches, 175 yards, and 3 touchdowns for 46.5 fantasy points. He's only rostered in 36% of leagues, soon to be 100%. So yeah, this is my tier 1 or 8-man league ads. At running back, I'm looking at Bucky Irving. He's starting to take more control of this backfield. Comparing stats to Rachaad White, 25 attempts for Irving, 31 attempts for White. Yet Irving is averaging 6.2 yards per carry and White only 2.1. He's clearly the superior back, and I think he's going to take more work. Darnell Mooney, as I mentioned, he's owned in over 50% of leagues, but if he's available, I mean, they're running tons of 3-man sets. He's getting a 95.6% snap share. He's a very solid 66 yards, 8 catches, 14.6 points against a good Chiefs defense. Moving on to tier 2, this is like what I'm targeting if I'm in a 10-team league. Demario Pop Douglas, 9 targets, 7 catches, 69 yards. Only rostered in 28.5 slow percent of leagues. Slow start, but I think he's my bet to emerge from the Patriots wide receiver room. Braylon Allen, he's good enough to take a third of the snaps away from Breece Hall. He's the league winner. If something happens to Hall, he's already getting almost 10 points a game. Really need to pick him up. Moving on to deeper leagues, kind of 12-team plus. Josh Downs, back in action for the Colts. He ran 73% of the routes, 28% of the targets, 90% of the slot snaps. Problem is only 5.2 points because his quarterback is not very good. If you're missing A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, they might both be out this week. So give me Jahan Dotson as a guy who maybe for this week only could provide some value. All right, let's get even deeper. Just some interesting ones to look at. Emmanuel Wilson, this is an interesting one. The Packers running back. Josh Jacobs is the guy, yet Wilson outperformed him, and I think maybe even out-touched him last week. Could be something there. Could be something. Same thing with Tyler Batty. Some leagues, you're just looking for a guy with a pulse, and that's kind of what the Broncos are looking for, a guy with a pulse. 9 carries, 70 yards. McLaughlin didn't take the backfield. Williams hasn't taken the backfield with his opportunities. His backfield is wide open. Sean Payton doesn't seem to care about draft capital and all that. Like, this could be a starting quarterback for a Sean Payton offense, and he's worth a grab. Quarterbacks, Geno Smith, not his best game. 2 picks and a substantial lead throughout, but love the offense and the weapons. Yeah, he's the one I'm rolling with of this group, mostly because Justin Fields, my other one, is already taken in the league where I needed a quarterback. Justin Fields forever. He might be going back to that QRB1 that we all loved in Chicago. Half quarterback, half running back. Potential injuries to Najee Harris, Jalen Warren might mean Fields carries more of the load. It's been a very safe and careful offense with Arthur Smith, but he still managed 18.4 points against a solid Chargers defense, only rostered in 24% of leagues. He would be my guy if he's available. Danny Dimes, back-to-back, 17-point performances. So Daniel Jones, quarterback for the Giants. Kind of a laugh, kind of a punchline. The Dallas defense has gotten shredded by a running quarterback last week. And all running game, basically, because we're front-running frauds. Might be something here. If you're desperate, Sam Darnold, no denying it, he's playing great. He's in a great system, and he's finally reaching some of his potential. He's scoring multiple touchdowns each game, including 4 against the Texans. He's only averaging 219 passing yards per game, so that efficiency can't continue. But if you need a fill-in, you could do worse. So that's my waiver wire. Let's do some shots of espresso and run through the rest of these games. What I'm going to do here, I'm just going to do one to 2 things per game. Let's start with the Thursday night game. Jets versus New England. Rodgers looks good. Garrett Wilson got bailed out by a touchdown. He hasn't looked great so far this year, and I don't expect much this upcoming week either. Pittsburgh versus the Chargers. Justin Fields had a great day, as I just mentioned, and J.K. Dobbins back down to earth with an 8.4 point performance because he didn't score. He's going to be a little touchdown dependent between a great performance and a good performance. 8.4 is fine. The Vikings murder the Texans. Panic meter on Stroud is like a 4 or 5 out of 5. You know, he played a bad schedule, a last place schedule last year. He's playing a first place schedule this year. Last year struggled against good defenses. This year he's playing a lot of good defenses. Minnesota's a good defense, and he just doesn't run. Justin Jefferson, he dropped to 8 or 9 in most leagues that I drafted in, and if you got him, you got to steal. He's over 20 points again, 3 touchdowns in 3 games. Love it. Saints-Eagles turned out to be a snooze fest. Thought it'd be a huge offensive game, and it wasn't. Saquon dominated. Hurts was bad. Without A.J. Brown, only 10.9 fantasy points. Injury. Devonta Smith left with a concussion. We'll see if he misses time. For the Saints, Olave, Ding, Kamara, good games, and Derek Carr back down to earth. Broncos stunned the Bucks. Bucky Irving looked good. No running backs for the Broncos look good, but Godwin for the Bucks gets it done. 17.3 fantasy points. Green Bay and the Titans. Emmanuel Wilson, 12 carries, 50 yards, 2 catches, 35 yards, and a touchdown, 16.5 fantasy points, just like I was talking about on the waiver wire. Might be someone worth adding. And DeAndre Hopkins returns after getting less than 4 points the first 2 weeks. He smashed with 6 catches on 7 targets, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Giants over the Browns. Man, Malik Neighbors is so good. Another 28-point performance. If you drafted him, because you went kind of middle rounds, you are hopefully, I would be stunned if you're not doing well. Nothing to say about the Browns other than their quarterback's terrible. Indy over the Bears. Caleb Williams, nice passing day. Rome Odunze, good day. Anthony Richardson's got needs some more time to develop. Detroit tops Arizona. Laporta injury concern. St. Brown's back. Arizona started strong but dropped. The Rams stunned the 49ers. This was a Sean McVay masterclass as they threw, I think, 1 pass in the first quarter. Kyron Williams is the dude. People panicked because they drafted Corum and said Kyron was going to return kicks. Overreaction, huge value if you got him. 31 points. Let's go. For San Francisco, obviously Jawan Jennings was a story. 46 points, as I said in the waiver wire. All right, the Monday night games. Bills destroyed Jaguars. Huge game from Josh Allen. He put up a 30-burger. James Cook, he cooked. And one of the guys I loved in the preseason and drafted in my deeper leagues, Khalil Shakir, he had himself a real nice game. 19.2 fantasy points. They just mashed. And I feel so bad for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. The other thing about Shakir is he has had 14 targets and 14 catches. So every time they look at him, they're getting him the ball. So that's a nice thing, that when he's there, it's there, and it's there. Christian Kirk came back also, 15.9 points. So that was nice. The other Monday night game, Jaden Daniels showing out. Huge game from him. If you waited on quarterback, you got yourself a steal. He is quarterback 2 right now. So 28.06 fantasy points. 39 yards on the ground and a touchdown, 254 in the air and 2 touchdowns. I mean, it's a cheat code. It's awesome. Running quarterbacks. It's what you want. It's what you want. The Bengals disappointed, 0-3, but at least Jamar went off with his 29.8 point performance. So 3-0 this week, 8-1 on the year, and good so far. I hope you're getting the wins.